Hello, everyone. Welcome to Talking Patreon. This is my third time talking with a creator on Patreon. So excited. Ann Stott here, as you probably know. And I'm having these chats with other creators on Patreon because, as you also might know, if you follow my feed or on my email list, I am running a Patreon deal through Friday night where if you join my Patreon page at the $5 level, you get this handy dandy Love Never Dies bandana from me, as well as a monthly haiku and a first look at everything I make and behind the scenes info. So please consider joining my Patreon page. If you have questions, throw them in the chat. I'll be happy to answer. But I realized as I was, promoting this and sharing about it and talking about Patreon and trying to communicate how great I think it is, that the best way to talk about how great I think it is to talk to other creators about how it's changed their life and what they like about it and why they were drawn to it. So today I have visual artist Matthew Levin with me, and one of the many things I love about Patreon is it's a hub for creators of all media, all disciplines. There are feminist film critics and visual artists and origami artists and musicians and filmmakers and YouTube channelers and all kinds of people. So today I'm really excited to be talking to Matthew Levin. He is a sculptor, and this is what Guillermo del Toro said about his work. Mr. Levin's portraiture is both quirky and mesmerizing. Each of his little sculptural sketches becomes a three-dimensional snapshot of the bizarre. Just as the eyes in a classical portrait are meant to follow you through the room, so will these disquieting homunculi. And I really hope I said homunculi correctly. I realized I've never said it. So please welcome Matt to
Hi
our
there.
live stream. Happy to have you here today, Matt.
That's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice quote from Guillermo del Toro. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was really nice of him. I was not expecting that, and I hadn't even asked for it, and he just sent me an email with this thing, and it was yeah,
Unsolicited.
just a gift. Yeah.
That's so generous. He seems like a really generous artist. Like when I read
Yeah.
interviews with him and stuff, I feel like I'm interacting with an art lover. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, to the point where he has his own museum collection basically that's now traveling the world, and that's only like a section of it. It's his collection is just over the top.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Oh, that's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
That's very cool. All right, so you're a sculptor
Hmm.
coming to us newly transplanted to Georgia,
That's right. Yeah.
and you have recently started a Patreon page, right?
Yeah, a bunch of years ago, I had it going for a little bit, and
Uh-huh.
I shut it down just because I got going with a day job that was just taking up so much of my time that there was no time to actually create the content that I was promising to people on the Patreon. So I paused the whole thing, and now just in the past few months since I moved here to Georgia, I've relaunched it, and I'm just putting love and time and effort into regrowing that.
So cool. And what um oh, hi Miriam, miss you too. Um what so what made you go back to it now? Like yes, you have the time, but what is it you're hoping to get out of it? Why did you choose
Well,
that venue?
yeah, I guess there's a couple different things. Like one is um, just looking for I guess platforms to create a more in-depth and intimate kind of connection with a fan base. And yeah, I guess just the people that are out there enjoying my art. Whether they want to be artists themselves and they're, looking for information on how to make things, or if they're just, art lovers and just want to see all the stuff and all of that. Um, yeah, I just um, something that would be like, yeah, just I guess a place where I could go more into depth in all sorts of ways, give people like a deeper look into what I'm making and behind the scenes stuff.
Right. Hey, Ariel. Ariel just popped in. Hey,
Oh,
Matt. Hey.
hi, Ari.
Um, yeah, it's interesting because obviously there's always a financial motivation. It is a subscription platform, a crowdfunding platform, whatever words you want to use. But everyone I talk to, they all talk about this thing of having a more direct connection with people who enjoy or consume their work. And the thing Patreon does is create a place where creators and fans can communicate directly on the terms of the creator outside of the sort of all these other platforms where the platform sets the terms of the relationship, right? Like be it
Yeah,
financial or communication or whatever. So it's great to hear you put that out front first. That was a motivation because I think that's a huge motivation for everyone I've talked to about Patreon.
definitely. Yeah, I mean, because I don't know, it starts to feel like Christmas. It's like the joy of giving gifts and getting to hear people's feedback about how they're excited about it. It's yeah, that's really cool.
I
I
think you
mean, and
need
then
to
there's the financial aspect, of course, as well. You can't pretend that that's not there.
right.
You know, yeah, just
I think you
like
need to
yep.
tell Jack Conti that you think Patreon is like Christmas. I think Patreon
I
needs
don't
to
know. It
accept
seems
that.
like it has the potential to be if we do it right.
Totally. I
Yep.
totally agree. Now, here's a question I have for you as a visual artist because I feel like the music world has kind of embraced the whole crowdfunding means of earning income
Hmm.
in a way that I thought was unique to music. Is that something that the visual arts world has embraced? Is there stigma around doing something like a Patreon page or anything
I
like
don't.
that?
I don't think so. It might be um, a little less like tried and true at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like when I was trying to set up my reward tiers and things like that. Um, I felt like I was kind of trailblazing. Like with the research that I did, I wasn't finding a lot of templates of other people who do the kind of work that I do that are already there that I could just say, oh, they're doing this and this and this, so I'm going to do these three things. It was, yeah, it was much more like just kind of grabbing a pen and a blank piece of paper and trying to brainstorm like what might people want and how can I take what I'm doing and find a way for it to make sense here.
So are you maybe one of the only sculptors on Patreon right now? Did you find
I
other
don't I don't
sculptors?
know. Like there are a few more that are out there, but I feel like to an extent we're all kind of making it up as we go and reinventing the wheel, I guess, to an
Mm-hmm.
extent, until I guess enough of us are out there and things start to seem to be obviously successful and others obviously unsuccessful, that we can, start guiding ourselves by that.
Right, right. That's so interesting. Well, I love trailblazing. So congratulations on seeing that through because like we were talking about before we went live, that there's a lot of work to all of this, right? And it can be really
Yeah.
easy to say, "Oh my god, I don't know how to do it," and sort of put it off and put it off and put it off. So congratulations
Yeah.
on,
Thank you. And then even wondering, okay, well, I had this idea to offer this kind of content. I'm going to have to do all this research and maybe spend some thousands of dollars on equipment. And no one has mentioned to me that they actually want that in the first place. So
right.
it's all sorts of jumping off of various cliffs.
It really
And
is. It
yeah.
really is. And even Ariel saying inventing the wheel. Good thing y'all are creatives. um, I had a lot of examples to follow as a musician because it was a platform started by musicians and a lot of musicians followed the original musicians but even then you really have to find your own way with which is part of what I love about it, because I can make it what I want it to be, and people can choose to participate in that or not. Um, Find my own way with what it is I want to give
Hmm.
every month, or how I want to do it. And I have a per thing account, so on my Patreon page, people pay me per thing I make, not a
Yeah.
monthly fee. Which one do you do?
I do the monthly one. I was looking into both options, and it seemed like you could only go in one direction or the other. And you couldn't say, well, this thing is monthly. This one type of service I would love to be like, as much as you want. You just kind of have to choose one for your entire presence. And hopefully in the future that would be a thing that they would alter so that, if there was some one tier that made more sense as a monthly thing, that could be available. But then if it was like, well, okay, you get an hour-long one-on-one sculpting lesson, well, that you can click on as many times as you want, and I will give you all of those in a month. It would be nice to be able to have both of those like simultaneously available.
So here's a question, because I haven't looked into this in a while.
Yeah.
Doesn't Patreon have a way when you're monthly to do like a one-time give?
It may well. Yeah, I probably have more research to do as I get more used to it.
I think you can choose if you don't want to be in on this monthly thing and get emails from me and whatever, you can give me $100 and here are the rewards for that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, go look, because
Yeah.
I think you have those choices.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, more choices are better. And so
Definitely.
what kind of rewards do you give your patrons?
A lot of it so far is just kind of like a blog, which I don't do anywhere else. And yeah, kind of like really in-depth explanations of what my process is as I go through, making my sculptures from beginning to end, and even just the emotional challenges that occur, and just everything. I'm trying to really be unfiltered and yeah, not hold anything back and really let people see the process. And then also there's more standard things like desktop backgrounds for their computer and their mobile devices and things like that.
Ooh, that's a
Or
good one as a visual artist.
I thanks.
Smart.
Yeah, and then and hopefully live streaming type stuff and tutorial videos and one-on-one lessons and like a lot of what occurred to me as things that I could really be offering were, I guess, more for people who are budding artists themselves and are looking for tuition of some sort. And yeah, some kind of guidance there. So I'm trying to make a lot of that available.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So
Cool.
yeah, and if anybody has more ideas and better ideas, I'm open.
So anyone watching this, if you were going to follow a sculptor on Patreon, if you were going to sign up and support a sculptor once a month, what is it that you would like to receive on the other end of that relationship?
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, because the whole thing is a little bit tricky, maybe compared to being a musician, just because it's a visual art, and when you're dealing with things like Instagram, for example, well, the whole point of that is posting pictures to it. And so, if I have 15,000 followers on Instagram, what am I going to offer somewhere else that isn't free when there's a good possibility that, as far as they're concerned, they look at the picture that I put on Instagram of my art and they now got the art. That was it. you know so
Right.
why would they pay for something when I'm posting the pictures to Instagram? At the same time, that if I have 15,000 followers on Instagram, if each of them gave me $1 a month, I'd be making 15 grand a month. So
Totally.
it's an interesting kind of a situation.
Yeah, there are a lot of, I mean, Amanda Palmer, I think, has the best phrase for it, which is, what does it mean when an artist stands behind their own cash register? And, we have all these choices now, these incredible choices about how to share our work in the world on these platforms like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, and that weren't available 20 or 30 years ago. But um, with those choices also come, challenges and questions, and
Yeah.
also questions about our time and where we want to be putting our time and
Yeah.
investing our time, like we were talking about before. You said something else when we were talking that really interested me. There's been this thing basically since Napster of like, well, music should be free, or people do basically consume music for free now. I mean, with streaming services. And I thought that was a music specific conversation, but your experience is that people expect or want art to be free as well?
Well, I think that it comes back to like the social media aspect of things. You have these people that are artists that are, trying to run their art business through social media platforms. And, you know, like, yeah, like most people might want to look at art, but they're not necessarily art collectors. Like in their home, they might have some posters, they might have some prints, but most people don't have original works of art. And if they're going to consume art, they've been pretty well like indoctrinated at this point, maybe that they can follow someone on Instagram, they can look at the pictures, and that was that. And if I was to say, well, I also need to make a living, so I'm going to throttle what I'm offering to all those Instagram followers and offer it somewhere else instead that they'll have to pay for.
Mm-hmm.
I would guess that there'll be a backlash about that, as if
Right.
I'm somehow slighting the fan base that's there by asking them to actually pay to see my work, because the seeing of the work is, for the most part, the only aspect of it that they're engaging in the first place, because they don't necessarily have an intention of buying a thing.
Right. Right. And to them, that is the consumption.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that they're now used to getting for free on social media.
Right. Right. Wow.
So I don't know. It's an interesting kind of a thing.
And honestly, I mean, I would love for all art to be free, but I just think that's untenable in a culture where we don't support artists. You know what I mean? Like we have to, if we want art to be free, then we have to find some way to support artists,
Yeah,
and not just rock stars or like the
yeah,
three artists who are selling their work for millions of dollars in Sotheby's. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like, so I
Yeah. Well,
feel
and
like,
even like just prioritizing what we're willing to pay for in our daily lives. Like I don't know, just off the top of my head, like the average person, if they go to a bar and order a beer, not that anyone can do that right now, but one beer will probably cost them $8. Well, how many artists could you support per month on Patreon for one beer? I don't know.
yeah, no, it's a
I
totally
mean, but you're
valid.
not gonna think, you're not gonna hesitate before you order that beer. You wouldn't
Um,
think twice about it. So I don't know, it's just interesting stuff.
no, I think there's a whole conversation about what we value and how we make our decisions about what we spend our money on. So I think for a lot of people there's a mental leap, like going to another platform, signing up, getting a password, then supporting an artist feels foreign. I mean, I remember this from when I was a street performer for 5 summers. Um, so I live in Provincetown, Massachusetts. We have a tourist culture in the summer, and you can perform on the street, and you really get just a crazy range of reactions when you perform on the street. And
Yeah.
there was a slice of people who were just so confused, like they had never seen someone performing on the street before. They didn't know
Really?
what they were supposed to do. They didn't, and it scared them. Like it made them anxious because the social contract was like broken. Like they didn't know what their role was
Yeah.
with this live performer in front of them. And a lot of people, those people, a lot of them would sort of scurry away. I literally had a woman sort of stare at me as she walked behind me one day, and then she was like, "Are you homeless?" And I can look kind of raggedy, but like, and I'm not saying this with any derision toward homeless people. Like, if you have a discerning eye, you would know that that's not what was going on. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Not because I'm in any
Yeah.
way judgmental of homeless people, just like pay attention and look at what's around you. Like, no, I'm choosing to perform here
Yeah.
right now.
Well, and yeah, again, there's kind of like an expectation with that kind of thing. I remember, I guess it was a few years ago, there were a whole bunch of viral videos going around of different like very famous virtuoso classical performers,
Mm-hmm.
going into subways and performing, and people
Oh yeah,
basically treating them like they were worthless
yeah. No,
because
Joshua
because
Bell.
yeah, like
Jo-
because they were offering it for free.
well, right, and because they didn't know they were famous, Joshua Bell went into a subway
Yeah,
and was performing with like a $3 million Stradivarius or
yeah,
something, right? And everybody ignored him.
yeah,
You know, so he made probably what I would have made in 2 hours
yeah,
busking in the subway. You know what I mean? So we have these very scripted ideas of how we consume these works and how we support
yes.
them.
And
And I think
how we identify that someone is worthwhile or special. It's interesting. It's
mm,
like we have these little tacit societal like constructs, that we put on this outfit and we go to this place and we see this person, and and that's what makes them special. It's weird. People a lot of the time don't have the confidence to decide for themselves what they like and what they don't like and what's valuable and what's not valuable. They rely on a critic
mm,
to tell them, or they rely on, on one of those social constructs to say that. Like there's a like a nasty kind of saying that goes around,
ooh,
that like people will say to each other, like if you start singing, and you get caught up in the moment, someone will stop you and say, hey, like, why Paul McCartney sings that song? And the answer is, so you don't have to. And and it's like they're trying to be cute and funny, but like there's like an undertone of like only specific people get to be allowed to make art and do valuable things. And if the world hasn't decided that you're one of them, you need to shut the fuck up. Sorry.
I
Right.
don't care.
Okay. I don't know who the viewership is. I don't. Yeah. Sorry.
I don't care.
Okay.
My viewership can handle it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and I think so. I think it's interesting because we are really like creating a new world. Like Patreon
Yeah.
is creating a new world, and it's offering an opportunity for artists within this new world where we are putting a lot of work out for free, and I'm
Yeah.
happy to do that. Like I really love making music videos. It's become like part of my creativity. um Ariel said the viewership is me. I'll get my earmuffs.
Yeah.
Yes, we've offended Ariel's delicate
That's
sensibilities.
that's right.
um, I'll have to have a little chat with her afterward. Are you okay? um and it's created a way for us to, I mean, again, for me, where we started with this thing of direct connection with people
Yeah.
is so huge. And outside of these other to sort of chase or follow or, sell in some way and just connect and be supported and for that support, give back. And
Yeah.
it really is a new world. And so I think sometimes it's hard for people to take the leap to the new
Well, then
world.
hopefully this is all of us laying the groundwork in this new arena to, yeah, to help people, I guess, decide for themselves what's special and what's not, and create a new definition for them, maybe, of what's worth investing in.
Absolutely. And that actually this kind of connection is maybe more special than when you dress up and go see the star who you never actually have access to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This, I mean, I have stars who I love who've been huge influences on my work, and I don't have anything against people becoming incredibly successful with their creative work. Like, I don't judge that on any
Yeah.
level, but, um, you know, isn't it amazing that we have this way now to connect directly
Yeah.
and,
We have to be careful to not devalue accessibility, you know,
mm,
in the same way that, you know, a lot of people in our culture mistake kindness for weakness, you know,
right,
like, yeah, they have to be aware that just, yeah, just because someone has a genuine, you know, desire to connect and, you know, the availability to do that doesn't make them lesser than or undesirable in the first place, you know?
right,
Like
right,
the Groucho Marx thing of I wouldn't want to be part of any club that would have me as a member or whatever it was.
right,
Yeah.
right. Um, no, I think that you've made so many great points, Matt. This thing, like not devaluing accessibility, and our culture is so much about accessibility right now. And there's this idea that if you like get enough followers being accessible for free, that will then translate into something that can, support you. And I think that works for some people, but I don't think it works as often as we want to think it works.
Mm.
I don't. I don't think it has those results. Um, but I think, Patreon is a place where I'm clearly invested in, finding, building the community that wants to connect that way.
Yeah.
And I love that you're doing that too. Is there anything, before we go, is there anything about being on Patreon so far that surprised you? Like, you thought it was going to be this one thing, but it's given you something else, or...
I don't know. I'm still really just getting my feet wet. I think so far maybe the biggest surprise is is how infrequently people are interacting and reaching out. You know, I mean, granted, I only have maybe 20 people
Mm-hmm.
that I'm interacting with, but um, yeah, but I somehow thought that everyone would be super excited that I was right there and writing me messages and commenting and do, you know, and there's the, you know, I guess people are liking what I'm putting out there, but they're not necessarily responding, which is cool. But I would like to try to think of ways to get that to happen more.
So, a couple hot tips on that.
Hmm.
A lot of times people don't do that because they're not on the platform regularly and they have to sign in to comment or respond.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
I do this a lot. I really suggest to my patrons that if they want to interact, that they download the app on their phone, because then they can just go in the app and comment.
Gotcha.
So I recommend that to my fans. And some people who have bigger followings, like two people I know, Amanda Palmer and Brett Gleason, do this. They have a Patreon only Facebook group, because
Oh,
a
okay.
lot of the people are on Facebook, and so they post the same things on Facebook, and the people in the Patreon only group, only they see it.
Mm.
And then it's a place where they can interact more easily because a lot of people are on there anyway.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Which can seem like an extra step, but it actually, I haven't gone that route yet, but it actually, I think, does create more communication.
Cool. Yeah, a buddy of mine runs a podcast that has its own Patreon page, and they have a Facebook group, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it seems like it's a pretty active place. So
Right.
yeah,
So, another idea.
yeah,
Um, well, it's been really cool to talk, Matt.
yeah.
Um,
You too.
Anyone who watches this, who's watching now or watches in the playback, please check out Matt's Patreon page at Matthew Levin, patreon.com/Matthew Levin. It's up right here. Ariel, thank you for introducing Matt and me and for watching today. And like I said before, sign up on my Patreon page before Friday to get this super fun Love Never Dies what do we call this? We call it a bandana. I've said the word bandana so many times in the last 2 weeks to get this bandana. And thank you all for tuning in, and thank you, Matt, for chatting about art and commerce and Patreon. And bye, everyone.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. Bye, everybody.